All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It is Tuesday night. It is 9 o'clock. My name is George Chuck Patterson. I am joined here by my co-host, Mr. Mac Epps. Not to be confused with Mike Epps. Depending on where you're from, you might say Mike. Got a great episode, great show planned for you tonight inside the Mississippi Legislature with Representative Zakiaya Summers, Mississippi House District 68. You know what time of TI is to put some on your head before you go to bed, baby. It's Nightcap Knowledge. Let's go. Look, when you reach all the way over right there, that mean your drum set too big for you. That's what it means.
My bad. You know,
so I know
not a real drummer. I just play one on the podcast. Shout out to the real drummers.
You definitely play one on the podcast. You
play one on the podcast. I am a brass man.
My brother's a brass man. He played the trumpet. I played a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. Played the trumpet. I had one.
But all of us, growing up, majority of us, I ain't gonna say all, but majority of us started out on two instruments: drums and a guitar. Like, you could buy one in the dollar store and you have it. You be playing your little guitar, that drum driving everybody crazy.
Well, I actually started on piano.
I was about to say I had a drum, but my first real instrument was a keyboard. I was making beats. Yeah, first instrument was a keyboard.
There you go, man. Well, Mac, what's up? Talk to me.
Man, tell everybody, clear my throat. This show is rated black and uncensored. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. and we're here to tell it like the TI is. If you don't like this show, this might not be the show for you. I had to work on my announcer's voice. You know, you got to get right. Go ahead, Chuck. Show them your announcer skills.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Nightcap Knowledge. My name is DJ George Chuck. That's Mac Epps, and we are your host for Nightcap Knowledge. Thank you. Yes, see, I did that.
Man, I think you might need to put your application in with Game Day or somewhere, man. You know, you need to call some games, do some commentating.
I would probably get kicked off of game day.
We're going to start our whole.
I need some practice to get
How
right on.
can you? So just shout out. We know we've been watching all the bootleg. Like when we just being honest, when we watch Colorado, it's usually because somebody's streaming it. Like, how can we do that? Can we? What we talk about it, but how can we be watching? And give it because some of the folks that give a commentating, they be having the channel to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like you got 5,000 people watching, and these folks just, it's a good opportunity. I know all the networking we do, but we could do something like that. That's something I would be interested in giving your critique, your feedback, stuff like that.
So I have an idea, and our
Keep it to
guest,
yourself.
I guess is okay. I keep it to myself. So Matt, go ahead and give us our mental health minute for today, and then we will get straight into our legislative update.
Our mental health minute for today is perseverance. And I tell everybody, if you are here reading this, listening to this, commenting on this, that you are already blessed to be able to be among the people that have still chances to make, things better, to help others, to be here walking among the living, but never give up. That things will get you on the ropes. Big shout out to Coach Freeman at his boxing gym and program called Keep Swinging. Right, life will get you on the ropes, but you never stop swinging. You never give up. You always keep moving forward. Always, as you highlight, you have faith in yourself and your deity, but you never ever give up. And always looking up, and also be an educated fighter. Know the strategies. When you fight the same fight, what did you learn from the last fight? What are your strengths? What is your strong side? What is their, weak side? What is their strong side? So you learn from the battles and prepare for the next battle. But you always stay conditioning yourself, whether it be your mind, body, and spirit for the next battle. So I want everybody to understand perseverance. Never give up. I think that young man over there knows a little something about perseverance, don't you, Chuck?
I definitely do know something about perseverance, as it is one of the cardinal principles for my great fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, and I really believe, everybody has their own opinion of which are the greatest of the four cardinals. But look, man, between perseverance and uplift, one, because you on the tail end saying your cardinal. Two is because you're on the tail end of saying your Cardinals. Now, it's almost over. But they don't do that. They don't do that no more. They don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got every organization has a blueprint, no pun intended,
I see what
to
you said.
what you need to do, and not to just limit yourself to the fraternity.
Mhm.
If you use it in life, it will be a real, going back to the cardinal directions, right? It will
Mhm.
keep you pointed where you need to go, right?
Keep
And
pointing your true north.
so if we use those foundations, and this is something that was well thought through, because one of our major things is number one, and you got to understand that sets the tone for everything else. If you get off, if you get off on the first number one out of the 12-inch rules, you're in trouble.
Come on.
Uh, but so we just learn those things. But one thing that out of every organization have in common, it is you don't give up.
You do
You
not give
keep
up.
you keep going. That's why a majority every organization learn Evictus. You do not give up. You keep fighting. So speaking of someone that keep fighting, we have someone here that has worn many hats, has been fighting the good fight, still fighting for the community, still don't mind getting into the community, doing neighborhood cleanups. This sister knows something about service. She knows a little something about sisterhood,
That's right.
and she's representing the best sorority there is, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. You gotta praise your own, man. It's a frog that don't praise their own pond. So you got
Come
to
on.
praise. You got to praise what you got. So come on out, Representative Summers.
Y'all give it up for it. Give it up for it. There you go. There she go.
Can
What's
you all
up,
hear me
Tia?
okay?
Perfectly.
Yes,
Great. Good evening. I'm in the building.
Oh yeah, you definitely in here. You in here.
How
We're
y'all
gonna move
doing
you
this
up here
evening?
right. Let's go. Let's move you over on that side. I'm
Okay.
going to make Mac and I a little smaller, and then that way we got you in full view.
Very good. I'm trying to get my frame right too. How's it going?
Let's unmute Mac. Mac, how you doing, man?
I was good. I was trying to get that bunded down. You know, we support Jack, and we just don't support Jack and wear it. We drink it too. So I was trying to get that. At a long day, you know, you need a little something as we get into this nightcap. You know, we put something on your head, but we also taste a little bit of something. What you got over there, Chuck?
I am sipping Cask and Crew tonight. I think this is the toasted. No, not toasted, roasted. Orange roasted whiskey. It is very good.
Yeah, you would be a person to drink something with orange. Orange is like one of Chuck's favorite colors, flavors. Is orange. Look.
Oh, really and truly. Okay.
Yeah. Hype, no hype. Yeah.
Yeah.
Representative, how are you doing?
Yeah, talk.
I am doing well. Max said that it's been a long day. It's been an extremely long day. Today was a big day for us in the legislature. It is our deadline day. And so it was the deadline for any bill to come out of committee. And so if the bill, we never say a bill is really dead.
Mm-hmm.
But the first hurdle for any piece of legislation is that it must come out of the committee that it's been referred to. And so if it didn't come out of committee today, then that makes it a little bit harder for that bill to have life. So a lot of bills died today. One of my bills died today that I have been working very hard on. And it may be a piece of legislation that you're familiar with. It's called the Crown Act. Mm-hmm. And the Crown Act would prohibit hair discrimination in schools and in workplaces. And it's, you know, primarily designed for Black hair, for natural hair and protective hairstyles. But through many conversations with some of the leadership, they had some concerns around the workplace portion staying in the bill. The bill was double referred, and what that means is it was referred to two committees, which makes it even harder for legislation to come out. Mm-hmm. So it went to the Business and Commerce Committee. That was the first committee, and talking with the chairman of that committee, we agreed that we would take the workplace portion out of the bill and just keep up the schools in there. So it would protect all students in schools so that they couldn't be, you know, expelled or suspended or, you know, face some type of punishment because of their hair. And so it passed out of that committee and we thought we were well on our way. And then it went to the Judiciary A Committee. And the chairman of that committee decided not to take the bill up. So as of today, the bill is dead, but we're going to try to see how we might be able to breathe some life into it. I'm not sure what the possibilities are because this would have created a whole new act. So it's not like there was a code section in it where we could insert it into another bill that had the same code section. So we may just have to try again next year, but we'll keep trying.
All right. So we know that this particular bill is, like you said, quote unquote dead. What are some of the other things that have made it out, or some bills that we should, as Mississippians, be paying more attention to or be most concerned about?
Yes. So I want to talk about some education stuff, healthcare, universities and colleges has been a hot topic, particularly on social media, and some election stuff. So I'll start with the healthcare space. So this year was the first year of a new term. And so with the new term, which lasts 120 days, it's the longest year of our term, we also elect new leadership in the House. And we got a new speaker, Representative Jason White from Hinds County. And he has really...
Holmes County, that's Max home.
Yeah, yeah. He has Holmes, Yazoo, and I think maybe a little bit of Madison. And he has really worked very hard, I think, to try to get both parties to come together and work on a bipartisanship level. With that being said, we passed two very important pieces of healthcare measures in the House. The first one is presumptive eligibility. And what presumptive eligibility would do is presume that a pregnant woman already qualifies for Medicaid, and it gives her the opportunity to go to the doctor early on so that hopefully we can prevent any health issues while she's carrying a child. And so we know that pregnant women typically qualify for Medicaid anyway, but there is a process to get that application approved. And so this would just start the process of allowing her to access care. So that bill passed. It was a bill that I co-sponsored. It passed in both the House and the Senate, and we're awaiting the governor to sign it. The other big piece of legislation, of course, is Medicaid expansion. And we did pass Medicaid expansion in the House. Of course, you all know, yes.
Hold on. Don't breeze by that, because look, I'm a Mississippian, and I have been since 1999. How that happened?
Right. And I think it's been 10 years of pressing the metal, putting the gas to the fire. As you know, we had a very contentious governor's race last year, and the Democratic candidate, Brandon Presley, and many Democrats on the state and local level were out in the community. We're doing press conferences talking about Medicaid expansion and the fact that Mississippi has deliberately missed out on billions of dollars. Money that could help with our infrastructure, money that could help to improve our healthcare system, and ultimately access to care for working families. And so when our speaker came in to his position, he said, we're not going to be the party that says no. We're at least going to have a conversation about it and see how we can get it done. And the House was able to get it done. Now, we did have to make some concessions because, we're in a super majority Republican legislature. And so we did not have the clean bill that Democrats would have liked to see. The legislation does include a work requirement. But there is language in the legislation that says if the feds don't approve the work requirement portion of the legislation, then the program will still move forward. So, we kind of got a just in case section in that legislation. Now, the Senate is supposed to come up with its own Medicaid expansion measure. We have not seen that yet. We don't know what that's going to look like. But we do believe that the Senate is on board with passing something. And what we're working on right now is making sure that we have a guarantee that if the governor decides to veto this legislation, that we have the votes on both sides to override it. We know we have the votes in the House. We're not quite confident yet that we have the votes in the Senate.
Okay. So Mac, are you about to jump in? My question is how, if you had to grade or give it a how likely are we to cross the goal line? Because it seems like, we're we in a drive, we moving the ball down the field. How close are we to scoring, or do you think we're gonna score?
What I've been told is that we are only a couple of votes away from securing an override in the Senate.
Okay, fourth and short.
So I think fourth is short for sure. Like we're super close.
Okay.
We just need that field goal to win the game.
I take that.
Yeah. So if you've been following social media or the media, you know how the governor feels about it. But I'll give this caveat. We kind of faced the same rhetoric from the governor when it came to the flag issue. Mm-hmm. He was not going to support it. He was a staunch opponent against changing the flag. We had the same type of temperament on postpartum Medicaid that we passed last year. And when it came down to it, he did not veto either one of those measures. And so, I'm remaining hopeful and optimistic that he will recognize that he should not want this a part of his legacy. He's not going to run again. He's about to term out. And I don't think he would want to go down as the governor that stops working families across the state of Mississippi from getting access to health care. And look, we're talking about you have to meet, the 138% of the federal poverty level, which for an individual is only $20,000.
Right.
So if you're making $20,000, you can't afford to get private insurance. And so people are getting sick. People are dying. We have the highest infant and maternal and fetus mortality rates in the country. And so I'm remaining optimistic that the governor will come on board and see that, the legislative body wants to get this done, and we need to get this done for the state.
I certainly hope so. I've always thought that it was a bad business decision on the part of anybody involved in politics, specifically on the red side of the coin. And then also some of the blue sides of the coin that find themselves not saying the things that we need them to say, or working the angles that we need them to work to come to the type of support that we need to get to this point. But I'm just glad that we're here now. So
yeah, I mean, what we decided at least in the House Democratic Caucus, and our minority leader is Representative Robert Johnson. Mm-hmm. Everybody was not on board necessarily with the work requirements, but the fact that we have gotten here after a decade of introducing legislation and it dying every year, we're not making any progress on the issue. So the fact that we finally got something where we knew we would have the votes, we just decided let's support this. Let's see how it plays out. And again, we have that language in there that if the work required, because what we've seen is there are 10 states that have included a work requirement in their Medicaid expansion program. Mm-hmm. And the Biden administration is not necessarily in support of that. So the CMS has only approved one state. So we doubt that the feds will approve a work requirement. And so we didn't want that to be a sticking point for making sure that Mississippi had Medicaid expansion.
Okay. Well, good deal. We appreciate that update on Medicaid expansion, because we know that's money. That's really what it boils down to. That's money.
Right. And not only that, but the first, and we're talking about money that's going to pay for itself, because once it is approved, we will get about $600 million for the 5% increase that will be provided to individuals that are already on Medicaid. And so that $600 million will actually pay for any of the fees or costs that will be associated with expanding the program fully. So I'll move on to education, and then I'll talk about universities and colleges.
Okay.
Another one of the priorities from the leadership is around the MAEP formula. The MAEP formula, which is Mississippi Adequate Education Program. It's the formula that the state uses to determine how much our school districts receive. Now, for the listeners on this podcast, they know that MAP has only been funded twice.
Fully funded twice.
Fully funded twice since its inception.
In the 90s, right?
Correct.
90s? Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Which means that our school districts have been without precious, these are taxpayer dollars. They've been without the funds needed to do all the things that they need to do to ensure a conducive environment for our students to be able to learn. That's why we're facing, 13 school closures in Jackson Public Schools.
Right.
That's why we're seeing so many issues with particularly poor and rural school districts across the state. Mm-hmm. So the leadership has decided that they want to change that formula. The House Education Committee passed a bill, and the full House has not passed it yet, but it is on the calendar. And what I mean by the calendar, all the bills that have come out of the committee go on the calendar. Okay. And these are the bills that the full body will vote for. You can go to legislature.ms.gov and look up the House calendar, look up the Senate calendar, and see all the bills that have been passed. Okay. You can also go to the YouTube page and look at the live sessions or the recorded sessions. So what the House bill would do is to allow the legislature to change the base student cost. So right now in the bill, it says that the base student cost would be $6,600. And then the rest of the funding would be weighted. So it would be weighted depending on disabled children, like if they have an IEP plan or a 504 plan, mm-hmm. If they are free or reduced lunch, and many other factors. The issue with that is that it would also allow the legislature to change that from year to year. So there would be no consistent student-based costs that school districts know they're going to get. It would be up to the legislature, which again is a supermajority Republican legislature, to decide what the funding would be year by year. Well, of course, that hurts school districts in planning for the next school year.
Right.
And it also opens up the opportunity for school choice, which is another bill that has been passed out of the House committee.
So I guess, and you're bringing up two different bills in this conversation, but to focus in on the MAEP, you're saying that as the current bill, not in its current state, like not how we currently operate, but what is being proposed year by year, we will be putting our school district on some sort of sliding scale, depending on how our majority, whomever that might be, feels at that particular time.
I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly right.
And that's some bullshit. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
It's very scary because we continue to hear from the leadership about the need to increase workforce development. The governor gave his state of the state last week, and he talked about wealth, prosperity, and longevity. Well, we know that for our children, particularly for children in our community, education is the key to wealth, prosperity, and longevity. But if they're for anybody, that's right, for anybody. But if they aren't able to go to school because the school does not have the funding to be able to take care of them, then what happens to that school? What happens to the larger community that the school is situated in? Mm-hmm. And then what happens to that child? And so what we've also seen, and I was going to transition just a bit, we've seen another bill that came out of committee. So right now the process is, if a child wants to leave Jackson Public Schools and go to, let's say, Rankin County Schools, the school district that they're currently in has to give permission for them to leave. And then the school that they want to go to has to give them approval for them to come in. That's the way the process is right now. The legislation that we're facing would remove the school district that the student is leaving, which means that if Johnny is going to Provine High School and he decides he wants to go to Pearl High School, he does not need permission from JPS to leave JPS as long as Pearl High School will receive him.
This sounds like a way for star athletes from our side of the tracks to be recruited and wooed and bamboozled into a system that will allow for the best athletes. It's like they trying to set up what they set up in the NCAA right now, which has been dismantled in a sense, which has been broken up a little bit by the NIL.
You got it. You got it. So it's not only the best athletes, but it's also the brightest students.
Right. High GPA.
What school district do you know is going to take a student that perhaps is low performing, that's disabled, that maybe has absenteeism issues or has behavior issues?
Yeah. Ain't nobody signing up for that.
Nobody's gonna sign up for that. And so what does that do to the school district that they're leaving? Well, the money is gonna follow the child. And if the student base cost, if this formula is changed based on however we think it should be year by year, and those students are leaving one school district and going to a more affluent school district, then they're going to reap the benefits of the funding, and the school district that they left will not.
Right.
Well, it's so much going into that. It just, you think about someone over there by Jim Hill, right?
Yeah. My high school.
Right. So they want to go to Pearl. You recruit him because he's a standout athlete. How do you get to Jim Hill? How do you get to Pearl? How do you get to Pearl?
Some transportation.
Transportation wise, right?
So the school would not be providing transportation.
Correct. So you got to get there, right?
Correct.
You got to get to school. But here's the thing about what I've noticed, right? Because behavior health from working in a school setting, socially, when you're coming from an area, say for instance, your parents don't have the most, you don't have the nicest things and things of that nature, how you fit in, right? So then I remember when they did that in Hinds County, and they got Christified, the local Central Homes Academy, right? They added, they at one point in time around like 2002, 2003, all in there, all these academies started adding Christian to their name, right, to get 501c3 status. And then they started adding some black children in there, and they started giving out vouchers so that you can go to school. But you always going to be known as the voucher kid, right? So you'll get picked on, socially disconnected. It's not the best learning environment for you because, again, before all this happened, what do we have? What do we have in place? We're talking about the race theory, where you're not going to learn even further about who you are and where you come from, and what things should be important to you as a young black male or female. But it's again, you justifying getting what you want. You want this team, you want this whatever is going to be beneficial to you overall, but it's not going to be beneficial to the child. It's not going to be beneficial to the parent, but you're going to wrap it in a package to make it seem like everything is going to go really well, but it's not. And we don't, and to this day, we don't know all the ins and outs of that deal. We don't know all the stuff that's the most important thing we need to let community know, and what can we do to stop it, or is it too late? Is this thing already on its way out? What do we need to do now as a kid?
Yeah, so let me tell you, I was just looking up the bill number. It's House Bill 867. And as I said, it has passed the committee and is on the calendar. And so this is an opportunity for the viewers to be in touch with their representatives and urge them to vote no on this bill, so that we can kill this bill. I believe it's a general bill, which means that, yes, a general bill, which means that it only requires a majority vote. Now, we know that we're in the super minority, right? I'm quite confident that you don't have to worry about the Democratic caucus on this bill, which means that we need to call our colleagues on the other side of the aisle and ask them to not support this bill.
Most definitely. So I know that what we'll probably do is we could definitely activate some folks tomorrow. It's an easy thing to do. You can find your representative. Hell, you can just go to the Mississippi Legislature site, Secretary of State, and make sure you know who your representative is, who your senator is, and you can make that call. It's easy to find the information. We actually have a tool that we listed on our link tree that gives you each person and the position that they hold, gives you a description of what they do, how it affects you, and also their phone number and their email. So I know that's on the Mississippi Move link tree that is on all of the social media profiles there. So now we'll put that in the comments. Matter of fact, I'll go and do that now. Mac, look like you want to jump in there.
I would say so. Let's make sure we take some time to do an orchestrated plan of pushing it out tomorrow, via social media and email blast to get folks engaged and involved, to call and tell them how it's going to affect their community. Because here's what people got to understand: even though they see us, there's a lot of school districts in places that are public school districts that are majority white.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
So a lot of times when they start thinking about it, through programming, we start thinking about things, they start thinking about just Black folks being affected and beneficial. No. Because we are not the majority. The majority of the public school districts are, they are white. So it's going to affect them when it comes to moving, because they are going to be able to leave those schools, or predominantly white schools, and go to the wherever local academy it is. And it's going to affect them just as much as it would affect the predominantly Black schools. So this is something that affects everybody, because when you start losing funding and you start shutting down programs, then you're going to start laying off teachers. So it's also an issue about job security. So we just got to make sure that we get involved and get engaged and help them understand and see that this is about that everyday, as they say, working family or everyday working man. It's something that's going to affect the folks that don't have a lot of money. And we need to make sure that people understand that that's us, and we need to be making those calls. So making calls, emails. What do you have a time, Zakiya? Do we have a time limit for tomorrow? Do we need to make calls about a certain time, about 3?
So, I mean, I will start tomorrow. I think our next deadline is March 15th for it to come out of the originating house.
Okay.
So we have a few days, but the chairman could choose to bring up the bill at any time. So I think it's important that we hear from you all. And then I posted in our private chat the link where you can insert your address and find out who your legislator is.
Yeah.
And I also posted the link to the bill itself. Another issue with this bill is, and this is what superintendents have been telling me, is that it's going to create a revolving door of students just switching school districts.
You got a transfer portal.
Right. You got a transfer portal because, Shaquan may go to the school and realize that this is not the right environment for him. And so now he wants to go back, or he wants to go to another school district.
Right.
So because there is no criteria, the administrators of that school district get to determine who they will accept or not.
Yeah.
And so you're just going to see children just all over the place, and that's going to hurt the structure of public education. The other bill is a bill to establish the Mississippi Virtual School. And there's another bill, the Mississippi Virtual School, and I was trying to see if I could find it. And we know what virtual education was like during the pandemic. It was not beneficial for our students. And so, you know, in my opinion, this bill is really a way to, again, siphon off more money into privatizing education, because somebody's going to get some money from establishing a virtual program.
A virtual charter school.
A virtual charter. That's correct. A virtual charter school, because charter schools are public schools.
Right.
Right. But they are what they are because they don't have to adhere to the same ramifications that public schools have to. And so that's House Bill 1192 for establishing the Mississippi Virtual Public School Program.
Mm-hmm. And
then I was trying to look for the actual voucher bill. But y'all go ahead while I look at this real quick.
So Mac, having Representative Summers on the show, and you hearing this stuff, and of course I know you worked in specifically in local politics for a while. What does this sound like to you?
Man, this sounds like the same old gatekeeping methods, right? You know, same thing when you start talking about same practices, taking over the institutions. So when you start talking about how do you take over or control or destroy a community? Well, you have to control the largest institutions, and one of the major institutions for us is education system, because that helped dictate, you know, third grade test scores, determine where you're going to build prisons. You know, so then you add another layer of testing for third graders, right? And so you just continue to put those stumbling blocks in the way, and you disguise them as you are trying to do something to benefit and help folks. That's how how you serve it. You know, as a kid, Zakia's on here now, but we're gonna keep it, don't try to keep it as real as possible. You know what I'm saying? As Devin the Dude said, you serving balled up hog shit and trying to tell folks it's chocolate, right? And that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. I mean, you got to. That's what they do, and they trying to tell you, oh, it's for your benefit. Think about. I complain all the time about the automated calls and stuff. Oh, it's for your benefit, for your convenience, and you can't never get the total understanding. You're on the phone for 30 minutes. You know, it's never for your convenience. It's always for someone else's benefit. But they disguise it as if they are doing you a favor. Oh, now these children don't have to go to those schools with the lowest grades, and they can go to these other schools. Yeah, they're telling you that you can.
We've never had the conversation, or I would say,
who requested it? Think about it.
All right, I looked it up. There's a person named Jansen Owen that's the principal author of.
When the issue is when nobody requested, when you're talking about the average community, especially our community, is asking for something, but you ain't never heard of a request. Who asked for the Hinds County corridor? Because I'm still waiting to find out who asked for that. Because the people we knew that stayed out there between Byram and Clinton complained about it. They want to know who asked for it. And I asked that question. And I was told by somebody that looked like me, they kind of shared, kind of shied away from it. Who asked for it? But it's supposed to benefit us. Nobody asked for it.
What are you referring to, Matt? For those
the Hinds County corridor was when they said that they needed a direct corridor to connect Byram and Clinton, and they were going to do this build out and all this good stuff. Well, yeah. See, what you could do is you bypass Jackson. You no longer had to go down Sidewell Road to go from Byram to Clinton, or you take one of these other roads. Now you got a main highway like a Highway 80. And why is that important? Because I just explained that before. You start talking about our frat brother Joey Martin, when he had businesses and stuff around Jackson State. But then when you build out the highway, guess what happened? People stopped traveling through those small streets to go over to buy Jackson State, so those small businesses die. So when you start talking about putting a highway to go around Jackson, then you further going to kill Jackson. So it's everything that they try to paint that is going to benefit us. It put us. You got to look at why and who's asking this question. So this education thing is a major issue because now we got school closures, right? So we got school closure that was pushed for JPS, and now you got a voucher thing that's going to tell you that you can go to any school you want to. What's going to happen?
And speaking of vouchers, this is the last education bill I talk about. Is House Bill 1449, which is known as the Mississippi Student Freedom Act. And what this bill would do is establish what's called the MSA program, which is Magnolia Scholarship Account. It would allow private school students in Mississippi to be eligible for the equal amount of state per pupil funding. So that means that homeschool students, private school students could receive taxpayer dollars to go to school. It's a voucher bill, and it is a terrible bill. And so when you, that's why I started off with the MAEP formula, because when you put all this in context,
we ain't never fully funded education, but now we're talking about creating opportunities for these entities to be created so that we can take the money that's been sitting there and accruing some sort of revenue. And now well, all right, let's do this. Hold on. Because I see the I see the play, right? Is there an entity of our control or within our communities that could be set up to end around and use this bill for our benefit? Is there one? The only one that I can think of that could possibly be ready to do something similar might be New Hope.
It may be like Adiambo School.
Yeah.
You have some of those private schools that have predominantly African American children in them, but those parents can pay for it. I mean, they can afford to send their children to those schools, which is why they do.
Right.
And so what we're saying is now that even parents that can afford to send their children to those schools will be subsidized,
right,
from public school dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it goes again, use all these country terms. You fatten the frog for the snake. So you put more money into each pupil because you're going to get the money back.
You got it.
You know what I'm saying? As Brother Hollis would say, you got to make it plain, right? Make it plain. I'm going to give you more money because I'm putting myself in a position because there's only one place to spend the money.
Yeah.
Why would they give Zakiya $1,500 in food stamps and she has nowhere to work and won't give her no money to pay her light bill? Who owns the grocery stores? Who owns most of the farms? So that's why when they had an increase, what they always want to give folks more food stamps is who owns the grocery stores, who own most of the farms. You put a position where you get your money back. You set it up. You're gonna, and it's just.
Oh.
And so, if this bill passes and it goes into play for the 2025-2026 school year, the program stands to gain about $32 million. Once it is fully implemented, it could gain close to $300 million. So that's money that will be taken out of the MAP formula, whatever that's going to look like, and put into these private school, homeschool accounts that will be called the Magnolia Scholarship Account.
Right. So on one end, you got MAPE, MAEP.
Mm-hmm.
That would, if approved in the new bill, would have this sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end of it, you've got these Magnolia scholarship accounts that could be established.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the number of students that we have enrolled in Mississippi public schools or whatever school that they want to be enrolled in, because we can say, well, look, we're gonna slide this scale over because we don't have that, that many quote unquote students enrolled or registered in our state funded schools. So now with the establishment of these scholarship accounts, we're going to allow more funds to be allocated for that. That's what it sounds like. It set up.
Yeah. And some people may say, well, what's wrong with that? Like, shouldn't parents be able to make the best choice for their children?
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that parents should make the best choice for their children. But what if you don't have another choice? In some counties, all they have is public schools. There aren't any private academies. There aren't any charter schools. So what other choice do they have? The only thing that they can do is try to make best use of the resources that they receive, which is not a lot. So they're trying to teach children. They're trying to pay teachers and janitors and school bus drivers and all these people, plus keep the lights on, keep the HVAC system on. Something is going to be at risk.
Here's my question. Why is the public school in Oxford and the public school in Starkville very, very nice? And the other public schools, because last time I checked, those are publicly funded universities. They have very nice facilities. I'll bring it a little bit closer to home. And this is me just paying attention to where the money goes. Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College looks very nice. It's a community college with multiple campuses. It looks very nice. It gets a lot of money from the legislature, appropriations from the great state of Mississippi, the quote unquote hospitality state. Why is it that these public institutions can look a certain way or should look a certain way, and then other publicly funded institutions, whether they be K through 12 or otherwise, they're not supposed to look like that, or we need a sliding scale for this? What's the difference?
The community colleges get tons of money, particularly those that are located in affluent areas of the state and that have a high voter turnout. So even if you look at the public schools in DeSoto County, along the Gulf Coast, in Oxford, they are able to do a lot more because of ad valorem taxes, which are property taxes.
Right.
They're in more affluent areas. So the ad valorem taxes help to supplement where the state does not provide. Well, in places like Jackson, where we have a low home ownership rate in the county, we don't have the property taxes that can fill in the gap. And if you also look at the fact that Hinds County, even in the last election, we have very low voter turnout. And so, I guess to give it to where the goats can get it, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Make noise.
Yeah. And so if the people are not getting involved and getting out to vote and participating in the political process, we got a primary coming up next week.
Right.
Those communities are going to be ignored. They're going to be forgotten because they are not leveraging their own power. And so we don't get the level of interest and attention and concern from the people who hold the purse strings because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Hey, I look 100% agree, and I think we're getting some amens in the comments, and shout out to everybody over on Twitter. We got a large audience of people on Twitter, so please definitely chime in, let us know where you're coming in from, where you're viewing from, and shout out to CRG Productions on YouTube for their comments. We are in a situation where we're not using the resource that we have, and that resource that we have is our vote. And like you said, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Like, we got to make some noise. And a lot of times when we show up in places and spaces that are non-traditional, and I'm saying, you know, folks that function as organizers or activists, when we show up in places that are non-traditional, people looking at us like we crazy because, you know, we'll buy you a drink if you register to vote. Yes, we'll do that. Your next drink on me if you register to vote right here at the bar with me. We need more stuff like that. And then, can I text you when we're on the way to the polls? Do you need me to pick you up? Can I send my partner by with his limo bus to pick you up? That's what Mac does. This is literally what this man does every election season now.
Everyone
through Mississippi Move, we got a transportation coalition of Black transportation providers across the state. And then you got folks that volunteer their personal car, and then they say, hey, where I need to go today?
Soapbox. But we ain't got no goddamn money.
But we ain't got no money. I'm sorry.
We've been doing this shit literally since 2004, since we registered folks to vote. Started registered folks to vote on the what street? The North Side Drive, the upper level at 1 o'clock. We've been going to because we got to get our voices heard, and we got to be loud and clear about what's going to happen because it's all strategic. Nothing happens by coincidence. It's all strategic. So I was listening to you talk about the housing. So a couple of finally, some people started saying what we've been saying for almost 10 years. Mm-hmm. There's no way that a group of people is driving down the highway every day and throwing trash out in a row. I said it literally looks like someone came out and took a garbage bag and just sprinkled trash. So everything that we have going on in Jackson, from houses catching the fire, our infrastructure system, it lowers our property value. It lowers the property value, right? So you just gave the formula of how school districts and money is calculated to be able to use per student. So if we got the largest concentration of Black students, but we got one of the lowest, when it comes to property value, and our property value is constantly decreasing, that means we have less money for our schools. And we have less and less money. So now you're creating more opportunity, which is why some of our activists, our forefathers, our ancestors talked about desegregation after it happened and how it hurt the Black community. It destabilized because now that Black doctor don't have to live in the same community with that Black janitor. He can go buy that old house that the white folks had across town because he can afford it. So when that starts to happen, it destabilizes our community. So now everybody that cannot afford to move is left vulnerable. And then once they able to get back control of it, all of a sudden everything changes.
Call it like it is. You're left without access to the people and resources that made your community stable. Like when you say it like that, like I need to be able to get what I need to get. If I can't get gas, that means I can't get to work. I mean, if I have to drive down the interstate, get off the interstate, then buy gas, that I'm now taking an hour and a half to get somewhere because I got to stop over here just to get gas. Or if I can't get to a quote unquote Walmart because I don't have a local grocery store, I don't have access to the things that I need for my family and for my community to be stable. We ain't even talking about thriving, just to be stable.
Zakiya, so if you think about what tactics did the military have used in other countries to take over?
Destabilization.
Destabilization of what? Economy. Once you destabilize it where I can, the institution where I can make money to take care of myself,
right.
I'm forced to depend upon you. When I'm forced to depend upon you, that means I got to do what you say. Go back to our feeding program that we said at the top of the list now for poverty, you know, and for free or reduced lunch, and you said we don't need another feeding program for our youth this summer. We got enough feeding programs in Mississippi.
Like she
talking to somebody else. Zakiya, we ain't gonna hold you on here. Go ahead. You got some more bills to get to. Cause we'll chop it up after you leave.
Sure. Yeah. And I was just gonna, you know, kind of, I guess, bring the cake together. Somebody said, don't fool me with cornbread when I smell cake. You know, try to bring these ingredients together. And so, you know, historically, we have not, and when I say we, west of I-55 has not received the level of investment for infrastructure improvements. And if you don't have the resources to fix your infrastructure, that means that your economic drivers are going to leave at some point in time, because they're not going to be able to continue to make money if they can't drive down the street, or if they're not confident that they're going to get reliable water. Okay.
Look like we got a little delay like right there. Let's see if we can get Zakiya back and keep the conversation moving. But we definitely want to thank everybody for tapping in with us, jumping in with us on Twitter. Mac, what you got over there?
See, that's the same thing I was about to talk about. Was we live out south, right? She lives southwest, and our internet. You know, we have problems with our internet out here. You know, so I did an interview with the Mississippi Free Press to talk about we feel forgotten. You know, we have a less of the resources with a large amount of the people for the city of Jackson, and we have, we have issues. Internet. You know, we talk about the issue we had. You know, that we are still dealing with also with the natural gas, the low lighting. You know, the infrastructure with bad roads and streets. You know, you come down Raymond Road from Terry Road heading to Sidewell, you're gonna hit about 12 potholes on the right side of the road, and it's filled with white gravel. So I mean, it's just so now I don't want to travel those businesses on that road because I'm afraid I'm gonna tear my car up. So I'm gonna go to another area. So now those businesses are gonna dry up because less people are coming to them because of the infrastructure. So, go ahead, Zakiya.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. And I'm also, as soon as my computer catches up, I'll post in the private chat. There's a link that we need folks to take the speed test, because you mentioned internet, Mac. And the state of Mississippi has received $1.2 billion with a B dollars from the federal government, thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, to put broadband across the state. And the map that they're working on is showing that there's some areas that are being served, but they're not. We know that there's some areas that have like cable internet that's very spotty, that's slow. And so we need everybody to take the speed test so that your location can be added to the map to show that your area is underserved. So that's just another caveat. Now I'll make sure I post that link. But yeah, all of this stuff is interconnected, and the intentional effort to not provide investment in our infrastructures is due to the fact that we have people in positions of power that have neglected to do that. So again, it all goes back to the vote. If you don't have the infrastructure, you can't keep your economic drivers, which means people don't have access to jobs with living wages. And if you can't work, then what are you going to resort to? And so I don't want to be grim in the conversation. I just want to continue to highlight the fact that we got to vote. So I'm going to move on to universities and colleges, because Chuck, you talked about being active, and that our power lies in our vote. Our power also lies in our dollars. And I say because Senator Polk in the Senate introduced a piece of legislation that looked at possibly closing 3 of our universities. Now, Senator Polk is also with Polk sausage, all right, which is something that we might buy, have in our refrigerator, even in our freezer, okay?
Oh, really?
Once the word, really, really and truly. And so once the word got out that this legislator was submitting a measure to close universities, and everybody immediately thought it was going to be our 3 top HBCUs, there was a message sent out over social media that went viral that said, you better not spend your money with Polk's sausage anymore. And so Black people have more power than what we realize. We spend a lot of our money on foolishness, and they come to expect that. But when we stand up and decide that we're going to do economic damage, in addition to leveraging our power at the ballot box, now we're talking about some real change. Now, I will say that bill has died. However, there is another vehicle for something like that to come back.
And what might that be?
And that bill is Senate Bill 2725, which would establish a task force to review funding formula for IHL, enrollment and graduation rates, and could put back on the table the possibility of closing universities.
Now we're talking about closing universities.
We can't take our hands off the wheel, because just like I said at the very beginning of our conversation, a bill is never dead.
Right.
It can creep back up in an amendment. The code section could open up that allows you to put that language in, or it could create another piece of legislation could be created that still has the same intent of a bill that we thought had died. So we still have to continue to be on the lookout for that legislation. Okay. Now, when Polk's bill was going through, the word was that the 3 schools that were on the chopping block, potentially on the chopping block, were Mississippi Valley State, the W, and Delta State, because they have the lowest enrollment numbers out of all the universities in the state. Well, then there was some other news that came out today out of the Senate that the W is merging with Mississippi State. So now if the W is off the list, who goes on the top 3 list? And you know who will go on the top 3 list according to the data?
What, Alcorn?
Alcorn State University.
But let me ask this question. So I know we're over time, but we're fine with going over time because this is a conversation that needs to happen. With Alcorn being a land grant institution, what does that mean? Or how does that play a role in the conversation?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that question. Mac may have. Mac.
Oh, he tapping his camera. I don't know what he's doing.
I do know that
I was trying to hit the button too fast.
Go ahead, Matt.
Because it goes back to why they were fighting to take over the airport. You know, it goes back to the minerals and resources that are associated with Alcorn. Alcorn has a vast amount of resources for mineral, and like you said, with land grant. So it'll be murky because now you're going to get into a different area, but you're going to justify it by saying that the enrollment does not have the I guess the status where it need to be to say that this school needs that funding. So that's going to be a real gray area. But what you think will happen if they're able to take over that school, or if they're able to get their hands on it?
Yeah.
You know, that's and the real purpose why Alcorn was created in the first place was to be the black counterpart to Mississippi State, which was to be able to create more tech support, which is folks to be able to do more of the skilled labor, but they began to educate. So that was the real goal for Alcorn when it was first created. But it goes back to what, like I said about the airport. They don't want the airport. They want the 200 acres that are associated with the airport. You know, it's always a bigger picture when they're looking at putting things on the list. But what other white institution we know that's publicly funded that is not a large major institution? Think about it. Even if it's a community college, which ones are that you have low enrollment? That if you just think off the top of your head, this is a real question. Can y'all think of one? Have you heard of one of the white institutions they're talking about low enrollment at this school? So what are they doing that we're not?
Going to their school?
They go to I don't know if you've been to the schools lately, but they are at our schools too.
True.
And they are benefiting from it because they are considered a minority. So they are at our schools.
I know one of the things that Senator Norwood has mentioned over the last few days is that, you know, it's imperative that we send our children to our HBCUs. Because what's happening is that we are sending our children to Ole Miss, to Mississippi State, to USM, and it's nothing wrong. I'm not trying to be critical of those institutions. Yeah. But what I am saying is that we also need to support our HBCUs as much as we possibly can. The predominantly white institutions, they get a lot of money from the state, and they get a lot of money from their alumni.
Right.
They get a lot of media attention. They get the athletes. They get all the things, and so they're doing okay. And yet, Alcorn State University, you know, according to some articles that came out last year, has been underfunded $257 million. You know, where is that money? And why isn't schools like Alcorn getting their money, getting their fair share? So, you know, again, it just speaks to, you know, why we have to continue to be on top of this and continue to raise the bar and elevate the message about what's happening with our HBCUs. The recruitment issue is not an issue for Jackson State University. Jackson State University is doing well when it comes to recruiting students. The issue is that they don't have anywhere for them to live.
Yes.
Go
ahead.
I think every black person got to understand it's a lion versus hog mentality. Every day.
And what do you mean by that, Matt?
There is no time to waddle and sit our ass in the sun with our feet up. There's no time to just sit around and do nothing, waiting on the day of the slaughter or whatever it may be. We have to get up every day running to be fed and being on guard to protect, because they are coming for you every day. As soon as we realize that, we'll be a lot better, because we keep thinking everything is okay, and they are constantly coming for us every day, every chance we get. But we'll get distracted with waddling around, laying around, doing and thinking everything. No, they are intentionally, everything that affects us without even calling our name is always on the chopping block. Always. And we ain't seen it yet. Even with COVID precautions, when COVID first hit, they were doing everything they could to protect older white folks, until they find out that it was affecting mostly the black community, because we already had problems with our healthcare system. You roll back all the precautions. In Ridgeland, they even closed one of the largest voting precincts and forced all the senior citizens to go to the smaller precincts when they were already scared to go out to vote because of COVID. And the reason I know is because we was out in 2020 taking folks to the poll and trying to figure out a way we're going to get people to the polls safely and use COVID precautions. We are always on the chopping block, and we need to continue to have folks like Zakiya tell us what we need to be doing to help get on the offensive, because they always coming up with a way to make everything legal that they already want to do in the first place. Close our schools, undereducate us, continue to keep you living in poverty, and limit your options so that you are forced to do what they want you to do. That's it. What does that sound like? Forcing you to do what they want you to do. Limit your options. We've seen that before.
That's Jim Crow, that's apartheid, that's slavery, that's Jim Crow 3.0. Like we talk about, we're heading into Web 3.
Yeah. So it's a fight trying to get ours, but we as HBCU alumni also got to get with our schools, and we got to have that conversation, and we got to work together. Like all this false sense of authority and sitting with your ass on your shoulders, thinking because you got these titles, that's nothing. We all got to work together to understand that I'm in the streets trying to get more students to the school. You got to work with me. You got to help me help you, because they are dangling carrots in front of our students. When my daughter went to go visit, I think it was Mississippi State or Ole Miss, she talked about, we just got a chance. They let us just have a smorgasbord. They just, they got a chance to go into the cafeteria. They had stuff that you only see at restaurants. This they day-to-day cafeteria. That's attention getter.
Yes.
When you coming from a high school where you got to take turn going to the porta potty, you can't flush the toilet. So if you're coming from this high school where you can't flush the toilet, and they giving you fried products because they can't wash it, and you go to this college that shows that, hey, yeah, we got a person cutting meat over here. We got this is where I want to go.
Right.
Yep.
Just saying. It's but the last bill the last thing you talked about was how it affects the vote, which is how we keep some of this stuff from happening. That's what we really need to get out to folks and hear what's coming down the pipeline now, because I know it's some tomfoolery.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about some election stuff. We're about to make history again, and I'll start with some of the positive stuff. We're about to make history again with House Bill 1609. This bill would provide for voter rights restoration to nonviolent felony offenders after 5 years of completing their sentence. So this would effectively say that if you've been convicted of a nonviolent felony, you can have your voting rights restored after 5 years. This is legislation that Democrats have been pushing for years. We call it automatic restoration. You could call it suffrage. It is on the House calendar. We thought that we could have, we wanted to keep the expungement component a part of this legislation, but we didn't have enough votes to keep that in there. So we took that out. And this bill is moving forward.
And what number is that again?
That is House Bill 1609.
Okay. All right, I found
1609. So if you've been convicted of anything outside of a violent crime like armed robbery, arson, carjacking, murder, and rape, something like that, then you would not be restored. But anything outside of that, you could be restored. So this is huge for us because Mississippi has a lifetime disenfranchising ban on voting rights if you've been convicted of one of these felonies. I believe it's 22 felonies. And so we are hoping that we get to change that. Now we passed some crazy stuff earlier this year. It was a ballot initiative bill. Mac knows this pretty well. Our ballot initiative process was struck down during the medical marijuana fight. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, for the people that wanted to put something on the ballot because the legislature refused to, they would initiate a referendum. Well, all of that was taken away. And so the only way that it can be restored is if the legislature reinstitutes a ballot initiative process. The House passed a bill. We sent it over to the Senate. There are several bad things about the bill. One of them is that you can never do a ballot initiative on abortion. If the referendum would require any funds out of the state treasury, the legislature cannot approve it. The legislature also gets to approve whether or not your issue can even go on the ballot in the first place. They can also come up with an alternative, which was kind of already in place. So that wasn't a good piece of legislation, and we hope the Senate will kill it. And then locally in Hinds County, and this might be occurring in other parts in the state, but locally in Hinds County, we are seeing action by the Board of Supervisors to close several precincts, about 10 precincts in the West Jackson and South Jackson area. Closing precincts is really a vestige of voter suppression, because when you close those precincts and you move them to another precinct, now you got to worry about what Mac knows. How are people going to get to this other precinct? Do they even know they have to go to another precinct? Are the lines going to be long? Are they going to have enough ballots? We don't want to face that issue. So it's a lot to be concerned about when you're closing precincts.
Right.
And so check in with your Board of Supervisor and see what's going on with your precinct, and make sure that your precinct is still in place for the election next week and will be in place for the November election. I have some legislation that I think is going to pass the House that would stop precinct changes within 60 days of an election. Of course, that legislation does not help our current situation, but we are trying to look for reforms that will not allow for future voter suppression by locally elected officials. So that's just a little bit on the elections landscape.
So Zakiya, to come up with a plan, if we can get the information of the precincts that were closed and where those folks that vote in that precinct should be going now, then we can get graphics and get stuff out to start directing people and not wait. Like, we need, even if we got to figure out a way to come up with signs, like prime example, if you voted at Timberlawn, we need to put signs that if you voted here, now you vote there, right? So we can go ahead and get those signs out and get those messaging out, because I know exactly what you're saying. We have done this time. You are standing there with this person in line, and they finally get there. And a lot of times the people that are working behind the that's another thing too, but working there are not the best at what they're doing, right? They are doing their best, but I would just say that, and they are not helpful. And you're talking about, I vote here. You can't vote here. You're not on the list. They are not telling you that, well, the precincts merged, and they ain't telling you that, well, your name not on the list. But I voted here last time. You were getting upset. Now they want the bailiff to come and but they are not telling you that they changed depending on where you work at. Right. They are not that far briefed, maybe, to be able to explain to you. When they say they just doing their job, that's pretty much it. So, and that's another thing we want to advocate for, is for people to take election day as a holiday.
Yeah.
Take vacation, right? Take off.
Make it a
plan to work. Plan to actually work the polls, to be a poll watcher, to actually work. Make that plan. If you feel that you have been done wrong or face somebody that had the worst customer service when you came to vote, then be a part of the change agent and say, you know what, I'm going to make sure I schedule my off day so I can actually work the polls, so I can set the example, so I can make sure that no one else will have the same type of experience that I had. But that's one thing that we got to do. Find the precincts that are closed, and the people that were going to that precinct, where should they be going now? And let's get that information out. Let's hit the churches in the area. Let's get it on the radio. Let's get it out there so people can be well informed on where they need to go. Because if you got to go to work at 8:00,
right,
and you are waiting in line, and then you get there and you say that my name is not on this roll, I can't vote here, I'm gone. And 9 to my 10, I'm not coming back, because my day has started and I'm working And then after you get off work, you got to pick up children, and you headed to the house, and you missed it.
Yeah.
So we always, as a kid, try to look at whatever the obstacle is, that we come up with a way to fix it, to come up with a way to help make that process a little bit easier for us. And so I always tell people I approach everything from a customer or a client perspective. If I'm in that seat, what would make me feel better or help me? I don't look at it from the other end, in which a lot of people we have in power look at it from the educated end. You didn't know shit 3 years ago before you started this. Now you're an expert and you judgmental. You don't do that. You look at it from the customer standpoint, the client standpoint, the community standpoint. And if you did not know the knowledge that you knew, what would help you? What would you want someone to tell you? And that's what we try to do. So was there anything else you added in this? And tell us what you need us to do, you know.
Yes. So I'm still trying to get a list of precincts that are going to undergo some changes. There was a community meeting held tonight that talked about Precinct 59, which used to be at the Word of Faith Church on Lynch Street, and that's going to be moved to Black's Chapel. That's the only precinct that I'm aware of in my area that will change for the March election. I think there may be another change in Raymond, but I don't have the details on that. However, there are 10 additional precincts that will be changed as of April 1st. And that will, of course, impact the general election in November, which is when Joe Biden and Donald Trump will be on the ballot for the presidential election.
Yeah, boy.
And so we are making it really harder where we should be making it easier for people to vote. We're making it really harder for them to figure out where they vote, and then perhaps face some other barriers to be able to exercise their right to vote. So I'll get all that information, Matt. I'll make sure I send that to you, because we will need to get the word out. And then I'm also concerned about transportation for our elderly members who are used to walking to their precinct, right? Because it's always their neighborhood for the past 40 years, 50 years. Yeah. So
I always ask the question of why. Like for a group of folks that just got sworn in, what was the major issue or concern that said, you know what, we need to close these precincts? Why? Again, who asked for that to happen? You know, what are the numbers? If it's a funding issue, then show me how you're saving money by closing 10 precincts.
Yeah.
And 10 precincts where you were elected from.
Correct.
Not just ran. This is your area, so you close the precincts. So if it's beneficial, if you if it's something that's going to be more beneficial, but again, like you said, it's about community. So I use the term community more than neighborhoods, because in community everything was right there. You had a stronger bond because your school, your church, your voter precinct, your grocery stores were all in that area.
Yep.
And your community was a lot stronger because you weren't driving across town and all those places. You knew everybody at every one of those places because 9 times out of 10 they lived in your neighborhood.
That's right.
And our community has become weaker since we started changing and moving around, because now you work over here, but you don't live over here, so you're not vested in here. So that's something that's a whole nother conversation for a different day. Well, yeah, if you get that information, we'll get that out. Is there anything else you wanna leave with the viewers that's watching? Anything you want to tell them that they need to do? Anything you need us to do?
Yeah, I think that's enough for one night. There, this process is still very fluid. We still have another month and a half to go in the legislative session. Anything could happen. Literally anything could happen.
Right.
The majority of the bills that are on the calendar will die. We introduce 3,000 plus bills every year, and we may pass maybe 200 or 300 every year. So you're looking at about 10% of what is actually introduced. But I just say, keep your eye on the prize. If you don't know who your legislator is, Click on those links so you can find out who they are, develop a relationship with them. Know that the Capitol is the people's house. You can come up there. You can meet with your legislators. You can come into the gallery and see how the sessions go. You can go into committee meetings. If you can't make it to Jackson, pull it up on YouTube. Get involved with Black Voters Matter, with Mississippi Votes, with Mississippi Move, NAACP, One Voice. There's so many civic organizations that can get you plugged into what's going on. So there really is no excuse. And, know that what we're doing in terms of this policy making process, it affects every aspect of your life. You know, we don't like to talk about politics in the church. We don't want to be political, but the reality is that our lives are political. And so if we aren't a part of that equation, then, you know, our lives are at risk. And, you know, we just saw that in Alabama, where they ruled that IVF, you know, was a terrible thing. I don't think they even realized that when we put 45 in office and he had the ability to appoint all of these judges that could then make decisions on precedents and on cases, we see the terrible results of that. To bring it home, in Mississippi now, parents can use a religious exemption not to get their children vaccinated. Well, we see how that's playing out in Florida. There are measles outbreaks all over Florida. I heard in Mississippi that there are over 2,000 children in our schools right now that are not vaccinated. So here we are again. Elections have consequences. And so, you know, we got to do our part.
Yep. We got to do our part. And like you said, your pocketbook and how you cast your vote are two things that you have control over, and you should flex your muscle every chance that you get with both of them. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get to where we know that the money resides.
Wait.
We'd like to thank Representative Summers for checking in with us tonight with this Mississippi Legislative update. Want to invite y'all to tap in tomorrow for a conversation around rights and redemption with Richard Bradley. We're talking restoring voices on Black with No Chaser Live. And look, y'all make sure y'all continue to tap in with everything that we got going on with Nightcap Knowledge, Mississippi Move, and Black with No Chaser. We'll see you next week right here on Nightcap Knowledge. Peace.